Hello Crafty Friends, welcome back to another DI-trY video. Today I'm going to be trying out a DIY using resin. This is definitely inspired by the work of one Miss Claire. This is her Instagram page. She makes beautiful resin pieces and resin art. I'll have a link to her Instagram and her YouTube channel below. So as you can see, you can make an awful lot with resin, and you use a liquid resin and pour it into a mold. Now here's some samples from Google of the types of molds that you can get. I'll take you through everything that I'm using and I'll include links in the description below. So here is the most important piece of equipment. You must use a respirator, not just a mask, but a respirator when you're working with resin. You'll also want gloves. They're not necessary once it's cured, but while it's still in liquid form, it is so very important. So this is the resin that I'll be using. I also picked up these silicone measuring jugs. You don't necessarily need these. You could use paper cups, but you would have to throw them away after you use them, whereas these can be cleaned really easily. So I picked up some of those. They came with popsicle sticks. And then I also got a set that included some glitters and little pieces and a mold that I'll show you in just a minute. In another set, I picked up this 3-pen mold. Again, I'll have a link in the description. It's from Amazon, and it comes with 3 different shapes of pen, as well as pen refills. So you can create your own fully functioning pen. It's like a biro style pen using resin, which I think is really fascinating. So then here's this mold. You'll see me use it a lot, again from Amazon. It is an alphabet and number mold, and it is perfect for making like little decorative key rings, or you could use this to make signs. It comes with quite a few accessories. So there's a small drill, and then there are also some fixings and fastenings, so you could turn these into like bag charms, key rings, bracelets and jewelry, and you would use that little drill just to drill directly into the resin once it's fully cured to attach those fixings in place. So the resin that I'll be using is clear, and to add some colour I have some alcohol inks. I have these from my card making adventures, so I'll be using some alcohol ink as well as the pearlized alcohol ink. And these are really fun, they have a beautiful pearl shine to them. I also have some sequins, again just from my general crafting and card making, and I'll be using those to add some interest to these pieces. So I've got my gloves on, I've got my mask on. Obviously this is a voiceover, which is why you can't hear the sound of me through a mask. And I'm just reading the instructions on the back of the bottle. This particular resin is nice and easy to use, as you just use equal amounts by volume. So you don't need any measuring scales. You can just pour solution A and solution B into a cup, make sure they're at equal measures, and then mix them together thoroughly. So I poured it into 2 of these cups. I have mixture A and mixture B, and then I've sped this up. I just dumped them into a 3rd cup that was previously empty, and that was going to be my mixing cup. Made sure that every last bit was in there, and then really mix this together. I'm working on top of a scrap piece of cardboard in case there's any spillage, because I don't want to ruin my desk. Now I have my pen molds. I'm starting off with the 3 pen molds, and I'm just pouring the resin into these until they're completely filled. I did have to kind of tilt them and squeeze them just to help the resin flow right down to the nib, but you'll see in the end when I unbox them, there wasn't really an issue with any air bubbles in there, which was really great. And then for this first one, I'm using pearlized alcohol ink. I'm using a pink and a purple just to see what kind of effect these get. And I'm going to do a lot of testing in this video. You'll see me test a whole bunch of different mediums to add colour. And this is just my first try, so I was being a little bit more cautious. I'm adding some more alcohol ink to that kind of straighter pen, and then I added some glitter also. This is my first time using resin in a traditional manner. I have used it previously to coat a tray. I got a kit that I tried out last year. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. So this is technically the 2nd time I've ever used resin, but this is my first time using it in a mold. For this larger pen, I'm adding in some mica powder that I have from my crafting days. And as I was doing this, I was realizing that it probably would have made more sense to mix these colorants into the resin before pouring it into the mold, because these molds are so small. I was trying to mix everything round using a cocktail stick, and it kind of worked. So now I have that leftover resin and I'm adding just a little bit of pink colour so it's not completely clear. And then I'm going to try something that I was really excited to try. If you have seen my last video, you will have seen that I dried out flowers. Now, as part of that, I kept a few petals and kind of crushed them into this confetti. These are completely dried out. You can check out my last video where I made DIY everlasting roses or infinity roses. They last for a year. They're preserved to last for a year, and they look really cute in a little hat box. So this is some of the leaves from that video. And I drop my spatula in all of my videos. I really need to work on that. So I use those inside the letter A. And then for the letter B, I'm using some pink glitter that I had on hand. Again, I'm kind of just using a cocktail stick to mix this. I was being really careful not to actually touch the bottom of my mould because I didn't want to scratch it in any way. And then for the letter C, I decided to be a little bit more adventurous. And I added some more colouring to this. So this is a darker pink colouring. And then I also added a silver alcohol mixative on top. Kind of regret this color choice, but it's all a learning process, so this is what I did, and you can see how those alcohol mixatives work. So I carried on experimenting with a couple more letters. I did the M in the same way as the A. The L I added some more alcohol to, as well as some sequins. These were kind of the big hexagonal sequins. The K, I'm adding a couple different colours of alcohol ink. I was only adding a few drops and then trying to mix it with a cocktail stick. And then I believe I did just one more in this first experiment. I also did the J, and again just added alcohol ink to this. So once I was done, I set this to one side and left it for a good 24 hours to completely cure. So I still had some resin left in this cup, so I grabbed some of the coasters that I made in a previous video, my Valentine's DIY video, and I'm actually adding this right around the edges. I'm just using a popsicle stick to do this, and I'm kind of going around the outside edge very carefully first, and then I'll fill in the center and let that spread to completely cover my coaster. And this, when it's hardened, is going to give a really solid and protective state. Now, some resins are heat safe and some aren't. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not too sure about this one. I think it will be okay with the temperature of a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, but if this was for something hotter like a pot or a pan, I'm not entirely sure if it's compatible. Finally, I have a tray, again from that same previous Valentine's video, and I'm adding a bunch of super fine glitter to my leftover resin and then pouring that into this tray and doing my best to spread it around. There was just enough to get a nice even coat across this piece. So I'm spreading it around with the popsicle stick, trying to be careful to not touch the sides too much, and then I went around with a toothpick just to kind of clean up any of those edges where there was some excess. So now we're going to fast forward into the future. Everything has dried and you can see I'm just peeling away any of that resin from the completely dried silicone cup. I did notice it took away the logo, the Craft Resin logo on that spatula that came with my resin, but I'm okay with that. And it was really satisfying to just be able to pull out the excess resin from these silicone cups. So now I'm going to take everything out of the mould. I think the best here was definitely the B with the glitter and the A and the M with the flowers. Some of the others, I'm not too sure on those colour choices, but for a first try, I mean, it worked. It completely set, and I got an idea of how to use this product. So I did find that the large glitter that I used in the letter L kind of just sunk to the bottom of the mould, so it just sits just below that top surface, whereas the alcohol inks do the opposite, they almost float on the top. So I was unmolding the pens. I noticed one of them is kind of curved. Maybe I didn't have it laying flat on my desk. I don't know, I'll find out when I try this again. And I mean, it works as a pen, which is pretty cool. The colour choices, again, I probably should have mixed the colorants into the resin before I poured it into the mould, but for a first try, really not too shabby. I really like this orangey one, it almost looks like amber. I think that's kind of cool. Now, as for the coasters, these turned out incredible. I love these. I've got some of the other ones for comparison. You can just see how shiny they are once they have the resin on top, and they'll definitely be more durable because they're protected by the resin, and same goes for this tray. So now it's a few days later and I am in full testing mode. I'm actually using some disposable shot glasses for the resin. These were really great for small portions of the resin that I could add mixatives to colour it or to add glitter, and just really get into that like trial and error. I am definitely somebody that learns that way in terms of trial and error, and don't worry, I'll explain what I'm doing just now. So those first two that I created have Brusho powder in them. This is a water activated watercolour powder. These I fully expected when they hit the resin for them to react and for the colours to start to bloom. They didn't. They still stayed in like a granular formula, but that in itself was kind of cool. Then this blue piece is an embossing powder from Love from Lizzie. This one here is alcohol ink. And then I'm going to move back to embossing powders. This is a neon green embossing powder from Love from Lizzie. And then for the last two, I decided to add some blue glitter. That was this one here. And then the very last one, I added some more alcohol ink. I took a toothpick and mixed each of them up, and then I'm just going to start adding them to this letters mould. This mould is brilliant for this type of experimenting and getting to know your resin and understanding the different additives and what it will look like. And I just went to town adding them in. Sometimes I would add just straight up one type of resin mix. Quite often I was mixing them, and that was really fun just to kind of guess how they would turn out. Like that C is just the embossing powder, but then the D is actually both types of the Brusho watercolour powder. The A is part embossing powder, part I believe glitter, and I was just trying all of these different mixtures. This was really great for me. It was a lot of fun, and this mold is really useful for being able to do that because you have so many different compartments that you can just add a little bit to, let it cure, pop it out and see what you get and learn from any mistakes. So I kept going. I did this with all of the different mixtures, and then once I was satisfied I had enough of my alphabet testing, I didn't want to waste anything that was left over. So I grabbed a small gummy bear mold that I've had for a while now, and I poured some of the excess into that, and just to use it up, I guess. So there you see that gummy bear mold, and then I'll set that to one side and work on my next set of testing. Here I'm using some mica powders, so a silver, a blue and a black. And then I also wanted to try perfect pearls. These are something again from my card making that I've had for a long time. And I just wanted to try how the perfect pearls would work. I knew that mica powder worked, and I know that perfect pearl is very similar to mica powder. Maybe it's exactly the same with a different name. I don't really know, but I figured I'd try it in terms of resin. So these are all powder additives, and then I'll mix those up, and I mean these are stunning. You could just tell in the shot glasses, they looked so beautiful. This first letter, the letter O, I'm mixing a blue mica powder with a pearl coloured perfect pearl. That's kind of confusing, but that's what it is. And then I'm just kind of doing a mixture of all the different ones. So some are just straight up mica powder, some are a mixture of two different mica powder colours, some are perfect pearl or a mix of perfect pearl, like this M here. So like the golds and the bronzes, they are my perfect pearls, as well as the white pearl colour. And then the others are mica powders. So again, I'm just experimenting with this, just pouring everything in, seeing how I like it. And I decided to actually add some alcohol ink to some of these. So you'll see at the moment, the L is just that pearl colour. And a little later on, I'll also add some alcohol ink to the top of this. And I kept two of my shot glasses completely clear of any mixative. So I wanted to be able to try adding a lot of alcohol to these. So I'm adding quite a few drops to the letter T. Again, I'm using the pearlized alcohol in this one. And this is something that I've seen a few people do, particularly with coasters where they add like layers of alcohol and it kind of seeps through the resin and it gives a really cool effect. So I'm also doing that with the letter T, but using regular alcohol instead of the pearlized alcohol. And I just had a lot of fun with this. If you are new to resin crafting, your takeaways from this video should be definitely wear a respirator. Like, I can't stress that enough. Do the tiniest bit of research and you'll see why that is so important. But also, wear gloves too, that's part of it. But also, if you're trying to get to know your resin and trying to learn what different colours like, a mould like this is brilliant because your items are going to be usable. You can give them to friends, you could sell them, whatever it is that you're doing with your resin, it's a usable item, and you have all these fun different colour combos that you've been able to test and learn, and I had a great time. So once I'd finished, I left everything to cure for a good 24 hours, and here we are to demold everything. I can't stress enough how beautiful that Love from Lizzie embossing powder is in that letter A. I think it looks great with the glitter mixture. I really like the alcohol inks as well. It gives more of a transparent finish. It's certainly not opaque. This letter C is really cool. So this embossing powder actually sank to the front, so it's kind of clear, but then with the embossing powder. Again, the D, that has, what does it have? That has the brusho in there. That gave a really cool effect, but not at all like what I expected it to do. Some of these pieces do have sharp edges, so they will need sanding down just a little on the back to make them nice and smooth. Again, that H is just beautiful with the embossing powder. The J has the blue mica powder and the black mica powder, and the mica powder, again, it's stunning. It's almost like a cloud effect, not in that it is cloudy itself, but it kind of has that like swirly cloud pattern within the image. The L looks really cool. This was the mica powder and then alcohol on top, and the alcohol didn't sink through, so it's just got the alcohol colour on one side and the pearl mica powder, or pearl perfect pearls rather, on the top. So one thing that I hope you can see and that is evident from this is that the mica powder and the perfect pearl work very, very similar. If not exactly the same. I think they give a really nice result. So if you have perfect pearl and you want to give that a try, it really works nicely. This letter R, I used the dark mica powder and then some sequins. The sequins all stayed at the top and it looks really pretty. This S is maybe my favourite, and the camera can't do it justice, but it is so very pretty. The way that the alcohol has kind of interacted with the resin, it looks stunning. Same with the letter T, but I prefer the combo of the letter S. And then we have just some solid either mica or perfect pearl. Then that Y is clear with alcohol ink, and the Z is just plain blue mica. So then it was time to demold the little bears. These definitely didn't turn out as shiny. They were kind of shiny on the back and dull on the surface that was touching the mold. I think maybe that's because the mold itself isn't a kind of really shiny mold, and I believe that has an impact, but it still gives a nice matte finish. It looks kind of cool actually. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these, and I did have some issues with overpour, so some of them have quite a lot of extra on the back that would need sanding down or smoothing away. But yeah, they look kind of cool. I'm pretty pleased with how this all turned out, and I certainly feel like I learned a lot about how to use my resin, the different mediums. I love the perfect pearls and the mica powders. I think trying the embossing powders was really fun because I have a bunch of these, so that's really great that I can make use of those in a new way. And then the alcohol inks, again, I already have quite a lot of those and they give really interesting effects. So that is it for my experimenting today. I hope you've enjoyed and I hope you've learned something new. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you learned something new today, let me know in the comments, and I hope that you are feeling encouraged to try adding different additives to your resin for your crafting. I'll have links in the description below to everything I used. If something isn't there, give me a nudge and I will look to add it. But thanks so much for joining me today. I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye for now.